Does that strike you as a problem? Okay, we have this Jewish Messiah, but we're not going to have anything to do with those people over there, okay? So this is a problem that's been going on for a long time. If I say something that's not in the Bible, well, I'm not going to, because everything, you've got every scripture there, okay? So can we go back to creation? Is that okay? What happened on the sixth day? What happened on the sixth day of creation? Come on. The man was created, okay? What happened on the seventh day of creation? He rested, right? It was the seventh day. It's the Sabbath. And what did God say about the Sabbath? To keep it holy. Bless the seventh day. He'd keep it holy because he had rested from all his work. Good. There's a bright group. I'm very happy to be here, okay? So, what did Jesus say about the Sabbath? He said the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Well, that makes sense. The man was made on the sixth day, and then for the man, the Sabbath was made on the seventh day. It's a day for rest. It's a set-apart day. I am not talking about the day you worship in church. I'm talking about a day of rest, and your body needs a day of rest, and it was for the man. Oh, how many men were there? In Eden, how many? There was one guy, maybe he had a wife, right? There were two guys. Were they Jewish? No, they weren't. Okay, let's go over to Noah. As it was in the days of Noah, are you feeling the pressure? The pressure's on. It's like the days of Noah, okay? And so God found one guy that was faithful. He was obedient. He built that boat. It took him 120 years to build a boat. He's preaching to everybody. How many disciples did he make? 0. He took his wife, his sons, and their wives. 8 people got on the boat. Okay, so Noah gets off the boat, and God gives him a couple of rules. I mean, they're in covenant now, okay? He says, well, don't kill people, and don't eat blood, and be fruitful and multiply. And he says, now y'all can eat meat, okay? This is a new development. Before that, what were they eating before? Vegetables, right? In Genesis 2:16. Genesis 2:16, Jehovah commanded the man, saying, of every tree in the garden you may freely eat, except that, don't eat that one tree over there, okay, right? You can eat any green thing. Could they eat any green thing? Except that one tree? How about hemlock? Are you interested in a little hemlock? Can I serve you some belladonna this evening? How about pokeweed? Well, probably your granny may have made pokeweed, but it's toxic. There are plants that are not made for eating. Can we understand that? So when Noah gets off the boat and God says you can eat meat, there's meat which is not made for eating. Okay? Now how did Noah know which ones he was going to do? Well, when they went on the ark, there was 2 kinds of animals. Of the unclean, 1 male, 1 female. Of the clean animals, 7 pairs. Now, Noah did not go out and collect all these animals. It says that they came to the ark. God called them to the ark. So Noah can look around and say, wow, I've only got 2 elephants, but I seem to have 14 cows. I guess the cows are clean. So he can know what is good for food. And by the way, was Noah Jewish? No. Okay, there are no Jews yet, all right? We're still making progress towards where the Jews are, okay? All right, how about Abraham? Was Abraham Jewish? Well, the Jews, so if I say Jews, I'm talking about traditional Jews, right? They will claim Abraham is the first Jew, but that's not true. There can't be any Jews until the tribe of Judah arrives in 3 more generations, okay? But Abraham was the first Hebrew. And he's named a Hebrew because he had a great between him and Noah, there was a guy named Eber. And that comes from that root for Hebrew. And it actually has a meaning. Every name in the Bible means something. everything, okay? His name means to cross over. So what do we know about Abraham? He crossed over. He crossed over from pagan religion practices in Ur of the Chaldees, and he crossed over and he came to the promised land that God promised him. And God picked him for a reason. Okay? Do you know why God picked Abraham? Genesis 18:19. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him to keep the way of Yehovah, to do justice and judgment, that Yehovah may bring upon Abraham that which he has spoken of him. Was Abraham faithful to teach those things to his children? Who are Abraham's children in the long run? Who do we have? Isaac and Ishmael, right? So you have one line, this line is coming to be Jews, and then you have another line that's coming to be Muslims, okay? So, well, what are some of the similarities of the practices between the Jews and the Muslims? Okay, they're the first monotheists, okay? And what else? What was the covenant that God made with Abraham? He said, this is going to be the sign in your flesh of the covenant. What's that? Circumcision. The Muslims circumcise their children. Not on the 8th day, but they do it. What's another thing Muslims don't do, that Jews don't do? They don't eat pork. I think Abraham taught his children. God picked him because he knew he would pick them, that he would teach them through the generations, and he did. Okay, so now we have Jacob coming along, and Jacob had a wrestling match with God, and God changed his name to Israel. And they went down to Egypt as a family, and they came out as a nation. They were Israelites, not Israelis. Israelis are the people who live over there now, okay? So we had to make a difference. And one of those Israelites was Judah, okay? We know that Jesus is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. That's his heritage. That's his genealogy. There's only 3 places in the Bible where people are actually referred to as a Jew. In the Old Testament, okay? So the Exodus, we're going to say maybe that was around the 15th century BC, maybe 1,500 years before Christ, right? And about maybe 600 years before Christ, there was a man named Mordecai, right? You know the story of Esther. He's called a Jew. So there's this, if I can say evolution, whatever, of the term of being a tribal unit until it comes to mean all the people that are following that faith into the future. Now, so what happened? Here's Moses, poor Moses. Are you glad you're not Moses, right? Oh, these people you gave me, God. So who went out of Egypt with Moses? Well, all the people from Judah, which is, I added it up, it's about 12% of the people. It was about the other tribes, altogether about 600,000 men. We're talking a million and a half, 2 million people are leaving Egypt. It also talks about the mixed multitude. Well, who are these people? Well, let's say, imagine that you're a slave in Egypt, but you're not in the Hebrew group. You're just, because Egypt was a big government, and they were the rulers of the world, and I guess whoever they conquered, you went to be a slave. Hey, Shawshank, I heard the Hebrews are going to split this place on the 15th of the month, full moon. Do you want to go with them? Yeah, it'd be good to get out of here. All we have to do is slaughter a lamb and put the blood on the doorposts and wait inside our house, and at the right time, we can leave. So there's a whole nother group of people, and you hear them referred to as the mixed multitude. And they are out with Moses, with the Israelites, and at Sinai. These are all the people that are at Sinai. Are they all Jews? No. There's one tribe, then there's a whole lot of other tribes, and there's a whole lot of people. Okay? All right, what happened at Sinai is they received the Torah. Very specifically speaking, if people say the Torah, they're talking about the 5 books of Moses, okay? This word Torah comes from a verb root that means to shoot an arrow and hit the mark. It's the direction we need to go. It's a teachings and instructions, good things to do, okay? Now, if you know any Greek or Hebrew, the word for sin means to miss the mark, to Torah is the opposite of sin. Okay, and you read that in 1 John 3:4. Whoever so commits sin transgresses the Torah, the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. So it's very unfortunate because we have a very different concept in American English, a difference between what is law and what is teaching and instruction. Now, it happens that God's laws, which he encourages you, I mean, if you've ever read Psalm 119, I'm going in your way, I'm going after your statutes, I'm going after your judgments. I can't think of the words all in English, all right? I'm going after those things, right? Because that's the way to go. That is the direction. God's law works like that. It works like gravity. Now, you can choose to ignore the law of gravity, but it works, right? Jump off the roof and fall down. If you are in sin, you know what the wages of sin are. So the problem is, are we going to understand that those things that are set up from the beginning still apply as law? If we break those things, they're sin. Is he a good father? He's a good father, right? If I said to my 5-year-old, hey, Jimmy, here's a $20 bill. Please go down to a liquor store and bring me back a bottle of vodka, which I would never do because my friends don't drink, but would that be a good thing for me to do as a parent? Am I going to give my child, I'm going to be a good parent, I'm not going to give my child something that I can't possibly do, okay? We should understand that out of all the laws that Moses has in his book, only about 25% of them are really applicable to us today. Okay, so we don't want to think, oh, there's big, heavy burden things that we should be doing, blah, blah, blah. All right, I just want to introduce you to one verse. In Leviticus 23:2, God is going to introduce, Moses is introducing to the people the list of the festivals. And this is what it says. Speak unto the children of Israel and say to them concerning the feasts of Jehovah, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. They are not Jewish feasts. They're not Hebrew feasts. They're not Israelite feasts. They are Yahweh's feasts. Do you belong to him? He's having a party. Do you want to go? You're invited. You're his kids. Do you want to go to that party? Good idea. We've come to the most amazing and unique moment in all of history. Look, is Jesus God? This is not a trick question, right? Who gave all those laws up there? Well, they were at Sinai. Listen, Isaiah 32:22, Old Testament. Yahweh is our judge. Yahweh is our lawgiver. Yahweh is our king. He will save us. Here's your New Testament, right? We always have two witnesses. James 4:12. There is one lawgiver who is able to save and destroy. When you think about salvation, you know who you think about. I know who you think about. I thought about it for a long time. He gave the law. He designed this entire system of how this culture is growing and the direction that he wants it to go. And then at the right time, Jesus stepped into the script. He wrote the script, and then he stepped into the script to fulfill his part, okay? He cultivated everything about Old Testament faith to be for a particular outcome. He could have chosen to come as a Japanese harmonica player, or an Ethiopian dentist, or maybe an Eskimo whale hunter. But that's not what he chose. He developed a system that he would step into that system. We know that he's the Messiah because he lived a sinless life. Hebrews 4:15. We have not a high priest which can be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted as we are, without sin. Remember the definition for sin. Sin is Torahlessness, lawlessness, right? We're under the new covenant. Good? Everybody happy? New covenant, right? Where is the new covenant? If you have a covenant, you have a piece of paper. It says, I'll do this, you do this, I belong, you belong, we sign, we agree. Where is that stated? I'm not talking about the New Testament. Where is the new covenant stated? Many places. Jeremiah 31. Jeremiah 31. Behold, the days are coming, says Jehovah. I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in that day that I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, my covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them. But this is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says Jehovah. I will put my law in their minds. I will write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And you know from Romans 11 that you are grafted into Israel. You're part of Israel. He's talking about the covenant. He's comparing it to the covenant from Egypt. When do we celebrate the covenant coming out of Egypt? There's a holiday for that. Passover. When Yeshua sat down with his disciples that night, it was his last meal here on the planet, and he said, I've longed to eat this meal with you. Every single disciple knew it was the time of Egypt, and he said, I'm making a new covenant, and they knew that it was what was going on in Jeremiah. This is the new covenant in his blood. So what did Jesus himself say about the law? He did not come to destroy, but he came to fulfill. Until heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law until it'll be fulfilled. I don't have time to talk about jots and tittles. It's a very interesting language problem. But it means the smallest this or the smallest that. It's all got to be fulfilled. Heaven and earth are still here. There's still lots of things to be fulfilled. Therefore, none of it will pass away. First John said, right? He that says he abides in him, in Yeshua, ought himself to walk also as he walked. How did Yeshua walk? Do we need to go out and buy sandals? Do we need to put sand everywhere? Do we need to wait till it's hot? No. The concept of walk is a Hebrew concept, which is halacha. I'm trying not to throw too much Hebrew on you, okay? The walk is how we work out, how we do daily the things that we see in the Bible. So, for example, it says, you shall take these words and put them on the doorposts of your house. Well, what words are those? Okay, have you ever been to a person's house where they have a little box on the doorpost? Well, everybody will have to come to my house, huh? And there are specific scriptures in there, just about 3, mostly from Deuteronomy, okay? There's a little tiny scroll rolled up in there. So we don't try and write the whole Bible on the doorposts of our house. That is the halacha. That is how we walk that out. Somebody decided, a rabbi, no doubt. If he did not come to destroy, and heaven and earth are still here, and we are encouraged, he encouraged us, teach the commandments. You know, whoever doesn't teach the commandments, they're going to have the worst place, right? Tie a millstone around your neck, throw it in the sea. It's not a good idea. You should teach it. Then how did we wind up where we are? Well, it started in 325 AD. Let's go as far away from this Jewish stuff as we can. But you can see most of it is not Jewish stuff at all. It's person stuff, Adam stuff, Noah stuff. Eventually, who preserves all that stuff is a community of faith called Jews. So that's how it comes to be that. And then there's, of course, Paul. Oh, Paul, okay. First of all, I want to read to you what Peter had to say about Paul, the things that Paul wrote. It's in 2 Peter 3:16. As also in his epistles, in Paul's epistles, speaking in them of these things, in which some things are hard to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable wrest, as they do also the other scriptures to their own destruction. Paul's hard to understand. I'm not going to pretend that he's not. You try and work your way through Paul. And it's not easy. You know, there's a lot of language and a lot of very, very, very long sentences. And sometimes we just can't track with all of that. But what was Paul's foundation? What was Paul's Bible? The Old Testament. He didn't have anything new. Okay, if Paul says law, he's talking about Torah. There's nothing else to talk about. Let's see what Paul said about himself. Okay? Acts 25:7. And when he was come, the Jews which came down from Jerusalem stood about and laid many grievous complaints against Paul, which they could not prove. While he answered for himself, this is what he said, neither against the law of the Jews or against the temple or against Caesar have I offended in anything. You understand? He said, I keep it. I didn't do anything against it. Acts 28:17. And it came to pass that after 3 days Paul called the chief of the Jews together. And when they were come together, he said to them, Men and brethren, though I have committed nothing against the people or customs of our fathers, yet I was delivered a prisoner, etc. So his profession is that he didn't break it and he didn't change it. Are we good? Are we still here? Did the brownies put you to sleep? No. What did Paul say about the law himself? Romans, you work your way through Romans 3:31. Do I make void the law? What law do you think he was talking about? God forbid we establish the law. Romans 6:15. Shall we sin because we're not under the law? No. God forbid. What then? We said that. Okay, Romans 7:7. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? God forbid. Okay, I don't know what sin is unless I have the law. If I eliminate the law, I don't know what sin is. It's not just something that you wake up knowing. It's not just something that is in your heart from somewhere. This is real life, okay? It's this law that became flesh, right? This law became flesh. Can the flesh stand up and do something which is not written? No, this flesh, this Jesus flesh, he's going to do all of it, because otherwise he would be in sin and he would not be the Messiah. That's the rules for being the Messiah. Romans 7:12-14. The law is holy, the commandment is holy and just and good. Is that which is good made death unto me? God forbid. For we know the law is spiritual. We don't think of this stuff as spiritual. We think of it as a to-do list. We think of it as laws. That's not what God said. God said, if you do this stuff, it will improve your spiritual life, because you will be making that word flesh in your flesh. If you do the spiritual things which God asks, it comes into your flesh. You make the word flesh. You give it flesh. There's a lot of biology behind this. I don't have time to talk about it today. Maybe I already talked too much already. All right. There's only one law. There's only one Torah. There's only one teaching, instruction. All these things were what was set in place in the first century. Jesus had everything to do with setting these things in place. He knew what they were. He knew why they were required. He did them. And he encouraged us to do them. Okay? It's not about being Jewish. Are you with me on that? Yes? No? Okay. Let me ask you something. Was Paul a great Torah scholar? Yes, he was. If Paul was a great Torah scholar and they sent him out to teach the Gentiles, why would they send him out to teach the Gentiles and say, well, I know all this stuff, but you don't have to do it? That doesn't make any sense at all. You see what happens, okay, in the first century in the church, in the original church in Acts 15, right? There were many Gentiles coming into belief, and so they held a council in Jerusalem how to advise them. We should not trouble those among the Gentiles turning to God, but to write these things. Now this is interesting, to abstain from things polluted by idols, sexual immorality, things strangled, and from blood. This is very similar to the laws that Noah got. These are basic human things. Why didn't they tell, oh, then do this and do this and do this? They didn't. Why? Because in verse 22, Moses has had throughout every generation those who preach him in every city, being read in the synagogue every Sabbath. Where are all these Gentiles that are coming in, right? The disciples, they're all Jewish, right? They're going to synagogue every Saturday. Well, we're in this new religion, the Gentiles. We're coming into a new religion. Where should we go? How do we worship? Well, you just come to the synagogue with us. And people are teaching Moses. It was expected that they would learn Moses, not put it in the trash can. I want you to think about this. Talking about the Bereans. These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind and searched the scriptures daily. What scriptures were they searching? The whole Testament, it's all they had. How about 2 Timothy 3:16? All scripture is given by inspiration from God. It is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction of righteousness. What is all the scripture that Timothy was reading? It was the Old Testament. This is the foundation of our faith. If we get to something and it looks like Paul is saying it's done away with, we have to go back to the foundation and say, no, Paul never taught that about himself. He never taught that about the law. We don't understand what's going on. We have to just put it aside and keep reading. And that's what I encourage you. I encourage you to go home, search this stuff out, look for it, see if you can make sense out of it. Because if the foundations be destroyed, what are the righteous going to do? Okay? Now, I want to be very, very, very clear about this. Salvation is by faith alone. We don't do any of these things to earn it. And if you do these things to think that you're going to be buddy-buddy and better standing with God, that's a mistake. In every single case, Noah, Abraham, Jacob, Moses, in every single case, God was in covenant with the people before he gave any rules. So there's no point to just doing a bunch of rules, okay? This is where the modern Jewish, the Orthodox Jews are. They have more rules than can I say sand in the desert. If you've been in Israel, you know there's a lot of sand and a lot of rocks. They have rules. They do this and that, and they think it's pleasing to God. For the things that they do, which are in God's commandment, they have the same reward as anybody. It says, even in Romans, right? For the Gentiles who keep the law, even without knowing the law, they have the reward. If you're an honest business person, God will bless your business. How about Chick-fil-A? Closed on Sunday. Well, maybe that's the wrong day, but the guy had a thought. He said, I'm going to honor God by closing on this day. Do you know Chick-fil-A? God bless the man, he passed away. I don't think his son's doing such a great job anymore, but Chick-fil-A is the highest grossing fast food restaurant in the country, even though they're closed for 1/7 of the time. God has blessed the man's intent. God said, if you draw near to me, I will draw near to you. And so there's a whole list of things that we should start to consider. And I'm not going to tell you what to do. Please don't go home and say, well, Marcy said, I didn't say it. I'm just trying to point this stuff to you for you to look at it, to consider it, to have a new framework for how a believer should walk in their life, okay? If you love me, keep my commandments. It's not another set of different commandments somewhere out there floating in the universe that are just spiritual. It's something that's material, that has life, and it has life in it. But not without being in the covenant. And I assume that you all are, okay? That you're all born again, filled with the Spirit, and begin to look at these things. Just lay it out. And as I said, my email's on there, and you can, if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them, okay? It is by grace you have been saved through faith and not of yourselves. It is a gift of God. I'm not talking about salvation by works, but faith without works is, okay? And works is visiting the poor and taking care of the widows and orphans, and there's other things that maybe we haven't thought about because somebody told us they don't belong to us. Having a Passover or celebrating tabernacles, something like that, okay? I am not telling you what to do. I just want you to think about these things.
וישם לך שלום. The Lord will bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you